everyone, I'm Roy Okoye, and you're watching the very first episode of Unsuccessful. This is a show about those who have found success but not without hardships and, of course, failures. Today, our guest is an up and coming EDM artist with over 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Last month, he released two singles and is set to perform on December 7 live at Hollywood Palladium in California. You may know him as Skybreak, but I know him as Jack Ramsey. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing all right today. Just had a pleasant 15-minute commute here from my house. Yeah, doing all right. Stoked to be
Yes.
here.
Thank you for being here. Well, why don't you tell us about yourself and where you're from?
So hello, my name is Jack Ramsey, and I have been producing electronic music for the good bit of 10 years, actually over 10 years
Oh.
now, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, just started off as a hobby. I had a very, very lucky pandemic where I released the right music at the right time, I suppose. And yeah, I've gotten to call this my life for the past 4 years. I've toured across 37 states and 2 continents, and it's pretty exciting. So yeah, that's me. I'm from Cranford. I think I already mentioned that.
Yeah,
So,
Cranford,
2 towns away.
yes.
And yeah.
I know you come from a very gifted musical family, and belong to a marching band too. How has that helped you getting into music?
Well, I was in high school marching band for a while. A great deal of my social life in high school came from that. But yeah, I mean, my father was a guitar player. We used to play
Oh, really?
pretty terrible music in the basement, where it basically consisted of him twanging away on the guitar in the E minor scale, and I would have my ADHD crazed 6-year-old brain just will up lyrics on the fly. And so some of the songs are a little bit clever, actually. But that was my first kind of gist at songwriting. I picked up drums from a pretty young age and did it at the local RMC studios in Garwood. I learned how to play drums there. Mostly rock style drumming. I kind of ventured into Latin and jazz after a while, and they picked some of their favorite students and to be a part of a songwriting class for a while. So I picked up some songwriting chops from there. They taught us very basic lyric writing and piano chords and music theory. And from there, I don't know, I just naturally discovered electronic music, and I was able to apply all those skills I had learned for a very long time. So that's sort of my origin story in all of this.
Well, so as we know, you're an up and coming EDM artist. Can you tell our viewers what, or rather, who an EDM artist is and how you got into it?
So EDM is electronic dance music. I originally got into this through a record label called Monster Cat. I was actually going to rep the hat I got from them. It's over there out of frame, but not doing that.
Do you still belong to this record label?
Yeah, actually,
You still work with
they picked up all my music actually recently. They are what got me into this originally. Like, I just discovered the music they were putting out on their label back in 2012 through. Used to watch when I was like 8 or 9 years old these Minecraft YouTubers, and they'd use that sort of music in the background. And yeah, it's just an absolute full
Minecraft, that's
circle.
huge.
Yeah. It's an absolute full circle honor to be able to be working with them now. They've put me on to, they've gotten my music into Rocket League, a couple of rhythm games. Actually, one of my biggest flexes, one of my go-to date strats actually is an arcade game called Stepmania X recently licensed my song. So
Really?
we'll drive to, yeah, it's really nice. So we'll drive to the arcade and they'll just like, my song will be playing and I'll just be like, check this out, I made this. So that's pretty cool. Sorry, I totally lost track of the session. Anyway, what electronic music is, what an electronic dance music artist entails is someone who produces electronic music. I also DJ it, so I'll travel around and I'll play on this big machine called a CDJ, where I plug in a USB drive with all of my music and a bunch of remixes and edits, and I'll just play them extremely loudly for a big room of people. And that's my shtick. That's kind of what it entails.
So are there like specific instruments you play, or generally all of them?
I mean, I play, like I was saying before, I play drums, and I picked up vibraphone in high school, which was fun because we had way too many drummers in our jazz band. But yeah, I mean, most of what I do is in the box. I do a process called MIDI, which is, I absolutely forget what it stands for, unfortunately,
okay.
but essentially you can plug in notes, note data, raw note data, and sync it up on a quarter note or half note or 16th note grid, and you just plop that all in, and then I'll design sounds from scratch. I'll flip samples, the whole 9 yards, and then I just sort of make a track out of that. I like make these assets, and then you compile them.
Speaking of tracks, when you first started making music, what was it like? I mean, I'm sure it was exciting, but were there any hardships? Did you have any hardships?
In terms of hardships, I mean, luckily I started from a pretty young age, so my brain was developing, and when you're 6 years old, you kind of
Oh, six. That's impressive.
Kind of suck at everything. Well, I only started electronic music when I was about 11 or 12, but music generally, yeah, I was in this since I was 6. Yeah, I did face a lot of hardships. I don't know if you're familiar with the term of the Dunning-Kruger curve.
No,
but
not
I feel
exactly.
So the Dunning-Kruger curve is essentially it's a curve where I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. The x-axis is your skill, your actual skill level, and the y-axis is your self-perceived skill level, your confidence in your work. So when you're just starting out and you know nothing, obviously, you know nothing. But then when you just start figuring out how to make like a tolerable product, your confidence goes really, really high up. So when I'm 11 years old and I'm just dragging a couple loops into a DAW, digital audio workstation, I'm like, oh my God, I'm incredible. Like, I'm the best. And then as you start to learn more and more of the like nitty gritty and the aspects of the craft that are a little bit deeper seated, then you're like, oh, I'm actually terrible at this. Like, hold on. So getting over that hump is where a lot of people quit. A lot of people fall into this slump of the Dunning-Kruger curve where you go into this, I think it's called the pit of mediocrity or whatever, where you are mediocre and you're excruciatingly aware that you're mediocre.
It's a little bit of both.
A little bit of both, but eventually, if you just stick through it and you trudge through the swamp of mediocrity, eventually you start to gain more confidence in your competence, and it becomes this exponential thing. And I've maybe in the past 3-4 years started to achieve what I'd consider, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but a level of competency that I'm comfortable with. And it's gotten to the point now where my DAW is like a canvas, and I can just splash my feelings directly on. It's almost like speaking another language. In terms of some hardships that I faced in the music industry, again, a lot of that, self-induced pit of mediocrity is a very tough thing to get over. A lot of self-doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome, especially as I started picking up traction, because I'm like, whoa, who am I to be releasing with these labels and playing these shows? But I've gotten over a lot of that now.
I'm curious, did people at any point, like, maybe, what do I say, did people at any point maybe look down on your music or tell you, oh, you don't make good music, any of those? Like, did you face any of those kind of hardships?
So ironically, I feel like a lot of the criticism comes when you start becoming in the public eye. So for the first few years, if you're making terrible music or terrible anything, nobody's going to come out and say, you suck, because that's picking on someone, that's bullying.
Yes,
someone clearly hasn't figured their stuff out. I mean, maybe if you're like, I don't know, like a horrible bedroom dwelling individual that never leaves the house, like you'll talk down on someone who clearly hasn't gotten their craft sorted. But I feel like the real genuine negative criticism and haters come from when you're a bit more in the public eye. Like I vividly remember my first little success in 2020. People were really hyped for my first 2 releases out of that success, and then I dropped an EP called Lumina, and that was my first time ever experiencing like actual like, oh, I'm disappointed in Skybreak or the whole 9 yards. So I feel like that's when a lot of the negative criticism starts hitting. And then at that point, if you're truly, competent at what you do, a lot of that is subjective. So that's kind of tough. In terms of people looking down at me, I mean, in high school, a lot of people, I think the turns have really tabled at this point.
Yes.
And electronic music is a lot more in the mainstream and a lot more widely accepted. But when I was in high school listening to and making this music, a lot of it was just like, oh, he's making that weird gamer music and everything. And now I'm seeing a lot of those same people attending the festivals that I've played or have DJs that are playing my music. So
I mean, you seem to have come a long way, and it's a lot of numbers that have gone around. So clear me of my curiosity. You said 6 and then 12, and you said you made your first major break in 2020. How long have you been making music?
Well, I've been producing music, producing electronic music for 10 years. I actually started Valentine's Day 2014, which has a tale that I'm not going to reveal on this TV show, unfortunately. But do the math. And yeah, so 10 years producing music, and then I guess if I've been drumming and doing that sort of, amateur music business since I was 6. What's that like? I'm really bad at math. I'm a musician, not a mathematician.
That's
22,
okay.
22 minus 6? What is that? Like 16
That,
years?
yeah, that should be like
That's
16
silly.
years.
That's the disgusting number. It feels like it's
Why?
yesterday. No,
Oh, it
it's
feels.
because it's like so long now. It's 16
Yeah,
years.
16
That's
years.
wild. Yeah, music has been a part of my life for well over 3/4 of it now. So,
Oh,
I
so
don't know.
they say never meet your heroes, right?
Yeah.
So who would you say has influenced you or inspired you to be an EDM artist, and like what made you decide that that's what you want to settle for as a career choice?
Well, I've actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I've actually gotten to meet a bunch of my heroes and even befriend a few of them, which is like the highest
Who?
honor.
Like who?
Well, for one of the artists who first got me into this is this artist named AU5, who's
Mm-hmm.
released a bunch of stuff on Monster Cat, a lot of like techie, sort of growly dubstepy stuff or whatever, but he's very multi-genre and he has this certain like visceral emotionality to his music, and he was one of the first artists that I really fell in love with his work back in 2014 when I started getting into this. And ironically, like 5 or 6 years into producing, I made this track called Hydrofunk, which admittedly has not aged the greatest. But he shot me a DM randomly on, I think, Facebook Messenger, like, "Yo, dude, this song is sick." I'm like, "No way! Like, what the heck?
Did you
This
ever
guy
do a
is crazy."
collaboration?
Well, I was gonna get to that. Yes, yes, we did. We kind of started kindled a bit of a friendship because he's known for putting out these tutorials on YouTube where he really deep dives into these more complex sound design methods. And I
Yeah.
remember over COVID when I was fully invested in my music project, because I graduated high
And that
school
was a
in
good time
2020.
to get invested. Yes.
It was a pretty good time, honestly. But yeah, I would literally fall asleep to his tutorials and just like actually like memorize them a ton. So in April 2022, he lives in Denver, Colorado now. In
Oh.
April 2022, I did my debut show in Denver, and I was gonna stay for a couple days after. So I remember we agreed to like hang out. I was gonna go to his house and chill, make some tunes, just hang out, like whatever. And I just remember the car ride there. I was like physically shaking. I'm like, dude, what? Who am I to be meeting this guy? This guy that's like
Yeah.
made so many tutorials that have influenced me so much and has his music has been such a major part of my life for so long. And so I'm expecting him to open the door and there's just going to be this godly like light shining through the
Well,
door
what
with him
what
behind
were you
it.
expecting?
And then he opens the door and it's just like, it's just Austin, this 5'2" little wizard, actual wizard. He's leaning into it at this point. He's like, "Whoa, hey there, Skybreak. You want to come in? Like, take off your shoes."
That's why they say never
And
meet your heroes.
it was quite a humbling experience. He's just such a chill, lovely individual. I really like it's strange that I got to call him a friend, but that day we wrote a song together called Catharsis, which means a lot to both of us. We both perform it in a lot of our sets at this point. And yeah, Austin's just the GOAT.
So
He's
so
great.
so basically, while we're still talking about your early career, at what point, how did your music blow up? And like, was it another song or it was another opportunity? Like, what exactly happened? Like, how did you make your major break?
So I'd say that the real turning point for me, there's a record label called Disciple in the electronic scene, which I also was listening to for quite a long period of time. Just a lot of the music that their artists were putting out with them. They were kind of almost like I'm trying to think of what it's comparable to. It's almost like they were like a content house, little family of artists that would just all release
Oh.
on this collective label. But they frequently had these things where they opened up a remix competition to the community.
Oh, yeah,
So they
yeah.
did one called the biggest remix contest of all time over COVID, because it was like everyone's indoors, they're not playing shows, so they're like, well, how do we make the label not fall off and like
Let me-
involve our community?
Let me guess, you
So-
did engage in that.
I did engage, yes.
Yeah.
I did a remix of a track called Parachute by Oliver's, which ironically 2 years prior, I won like a T-shirt giveaway from him, so it was kind of silly. And yeah, I ended up winning the remix competition,
Oh,
and I
really?
got to release with the record label. And at the time, my little subgenre, which we all call color bass, because it's like bass music and like kind of more heavy, intensive electronic music with like these splashes of color and melody in there. Yeah, that was just starting to gain more traction, and Disciple wanted to put out a compilation just fully of that genre. So, like 2 days after I won the contest, we were like, "Thank you so much for like, giving me this opportunity. Like, here's a couple demos." I was also working on an EP, so it was just perfect timing. I won the remix contest, and then they ended up accepting 6 demos from me.
Did you ever get to meet them?
Oh yeah,
person?
yeah. I've been to their HQ a couple times. I've done
Oh, that's
tutorials
cool.
there, and I released 2 EPs with them. at this point, Lumina and Moonglow, which are both kind of not necessarily sister EPs, but they're a little bit similar in tone and style. And yeah, it was incredible. Like that got so many new eyes on my project. I got to meet some of the DJs that released with the label that have been inspiring me for a really long time. And yeah, it was definitely a pivotal point in my career. I really owe. I got to meet Oliver's, actually, the guy that made the original Parachute song.
Yeah.
I got to meet him a couple weeks ago when we performed at a festival together in Ohio.
Oh, that's
and
that's impressive.
it was really nice. We just chatted about Steely Dan. He's been really into him recently.
So okay,
Like,
so
you made my career.
let's fast forward a few years, right?
Yeah.
A few years into the industry and all of that. I mean, your music is finally getting recognition. Like it's getting a good amount of recognition right now. Obviously, there's some obstacles that were in the way that you had to overcome. Is there anyone you would say that particularly stands out to you?
Oh, obstacles that I had to overcome. A lot of it is just self-confidence stuff, really. Like, again, electronic music production was kind of like a coping mechanism for me in high school because, I don't know, I didn't have that many friends at the time, and, there was some stupid bullying stuff going on.
Yeah.
But, so every night I would just come home and work on the music, and, I don't know, when you have, like, a day life where it's, like, everyone is taking the piss out of you, because I'm very clearly quite ADHD. I like to make that quite public. People are like, oh, who's this weird, like, fidgety individual that's super quiet sometimes and super loud other times, like, and it's like that, those thoughts kind of build up in your head, but music was always my escape. So
so it was like your best friend, like your little.
It was like my rock.
Yeah.
It was my absolute rock. But unfortunately, some of the self-confidence issues that stemmed from that would bleed into the music, and it's like sometimes be like, man, like this song sucks, or like, oh, like I don't know. Like that was definitely the big obstacle for me. But over the past few years, gaining recognition from my music and realizing that wait, actually, a lot of those high school kids kind of suck. It's like,
well, what do they think of you now that that little kid who has always been probably bullied, like you said, or always in his quiet space? What do they think now that your music is finally paying off?
Yeah, I mean, I think my younger self would be very proud of me. Honestly, one of my best friends in the scene, Harvey, had a very similar upbringing where music was sort of his escape, and he just dropped a song called "Make 'Em Proud," which is all about sort of honoring your earlier self, especially when it has gone through some hardships and the whole 9 yards, and just doing things to honor their legacy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a great message, and it's one that I resonate highly with. So, yeah, I think younger me would be extremely proud of what I'm doing right now, and that makes me really happy. And I've kind of accomplished all of the goals that I set out to do when I was young, and now I'm like, okay, let's figure out what's next, and gotta keep doing bigger, more ambitious projects and expressing how 22-year-old me feels, because I feel like I've expressed how 14-year-old Jack Ramsey felt for quite a while through my craft, and now I'm gaining new influences and figuring out how to properly express those. And yeah, I'm in a pretty good place now. It's good.
So Jack, we've all gone through our own blocks in lives, that maybe stops us from doing what we need to do. So as an artist, I'm pretty much sure you've probably had, gone through like some creative ruts in the past. I mean, everyone goes through creative blocks sometimes. So how would you say that has impacted your career, or, stop you from doing what you need to do? How do you move past them?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially in 2021 to 2022, I experienced a really rough creative block.
Oh, really? Tell me about it.
Which is ironic because that's like when I started picking up traction, but that's kind of part of the point. I think that all writer's block, I'm actually planning to do an hour-long video essay on like the definitive guide to breaking writer's block, but I haven't even started on it yet, but that's like definitely a life goal of mine. Because I feel like something has been rewired in my brain that I feel like I'm good now. But I feel like most writer's block stems from egos and emotions. When you're sitting down and you're writing a song and you're not honoring the art, you're trying to get some ulterior gain out of it because you're too good to make this art, or you're not good enough to make this art.
So you're trying to say you need to love the craft. You need to love,
I mean, you need to love the craft, but more so you need to almost step away from putting too much of yourself in it. It's like, I view music and art as these ideas that float around us at all times.
Yeah.
And I think as artists, especially artists that have trained for years and years and years, we need to be vessels to make the best version of the art. Not the version of the art that is most most Jack Ramsey or most Roy, right? But we want to make the art in the most purest form. And I felt like in 2021 and 2022, I was trying too hard to uphold this certain standard. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't about me anymore. This is like elevating a whole genre, and I need to make this game-changing music. I need to make this
So
innovative
you're trying
work.
to break the skills at all costs. That's what
Yeah,
you were trying to
it's
do.
like I need to make this scale-breaking, groundbreaking music, and it's like
Yeah.
when you set that standard for yourself, that's not what yields great art. What yields great art is like honest expression and just cultivating ideas from a multitude of influences and just letting it flow freely. And I think if you diagnose that an art is like crappy too soon, or you get too attached to a certain art, it's not writer's block. It's ego. It's an ego thing, and then the
Yeah.
other half is emotions. I think if you've had some traumatic experience in your life go down and you're forcing yourself to sit down and make art from it, you know, sometimes that's not great. Or if there's like a bit of like an emotional disconnect. Like I feel like for example, you know, if you go through a heartbreak or a breakup and then you're forcing yourself to sit down and make these anthems that feel super powerful, or like I'm so happy, this is my fighting song, this is my fight song, it's like, you know, it's just going to come across as disingenuous, and because of that it's going to stem back to your ego. Oh, this isn't sounding good. It's not a true reflection of what you're feeling at the moment. So I feel like all writer's block can stem down to ego and emotions. And I
Yeah.
think as long as you are expressing honestly and creatively what you're feeling in that moment, it doesn't matter if it's good. Or it being good is going to be a byproduct of you just entering like a flow state because you're so in tune with what you're currently feeling.
Yeah.
So that's my take on writer's block, and I feel like I'm going to expand way more on it when I eventually sit down and write this YouTube essay. Unfortunately, I have like a million other things happening, but that's sort of my take on it.
Speaking on traumatic experiences, you know, everybody has someone they love. And love is one thing I know that gets you through so many things. So how would you say your friends and family have, you know, maybe supported you throughout your journey?
I mean, my friends and family have been immensely supportive. I feel like, that's a good way of putting this. I mean, I've become friends with a lot of fellow musicians.
Yeah, of
so a lot of the
course.
time, you know, we'll send each other stuff for feedback, and we'll gas each other up, and we'll, you know, share our latest tunes to stories and the whole 9 yards. I don't feel like the love and support that my friends give me can even be put into words. It's just more so like this aura of groundingness that contributes to good art. You know, I think if you feel loved and you curate love in your life, then you're just more motivated. You're just more driven. It's really difficult to explain. I think my parents, especially over the past few years,
Yeah.
have been exceptionally supportive of my work
From
as
the
well.
get-go? Like from day
No,
one?
I think they were supportive of music as a hobby from the get-go. That's never been
Not
an
as a
issue.
career.
But for the last few years of high school, when I would literally sit in the lunchroom and just
Yeah.
like whip out my Chromebook and just write down the name of all the promoters in the USA, all the YouTube channels that I could do. And my parents were just like, well, you're putting too much pressure on this, like, you know, like do some schoolwork or the whole 9 yards. And I completely, as an adult, understand why, because, you know, it's scary. The music industry is extremely volatile, and, you know, I'm now, as someone that works in it, I can see firsthand how scary it would
Yeah.
be to a parental figure. Like, wait, why is my child doing this? And, you know, they've been saving since I was a really young kid to go to college and take a traditional route doing computer science. So I think they were really scared. But once I started proving myself and showing that the bills could be paid out of music, and
The bills can be paid with
and
music.
I think what really the turning point for them was I did a show in New York City in June 2022. Called Formfest New York City, where people literally flew out to see me, and the
really?
room was just packed with passionate fans. And my parents both had shirts with name tags that said, "Hey, I'm Skybreak's mom," and "Hey, I'm Skybreak's dad." And people just came up to them and said, "Whatever you did right. You know, Skybreak's music means so much to me." I think ever since that day, they've just been overjoyed. You know, they've been extremely supportive, and they've realized that when someone is so passionate about a thing as I am, you know, they will make it work. I think if you really truly care, you will make ends meet, and you will make things work with a little bit of smarts and a little bit of luck. You will make it work. So they've been extremely supportive the
So
past few years.
did you ever get to make that computer science degree work alongside your music?
I'm still in school at Union County College, just juggling a multimedia degree at the moment, just like an
Okay.
associate's. I really did try to go to give a 4-year school an honest shot and juggle it, but I have some hilarious tales about it. I was like, I asked for an extension on my paper because I was going to play this festival in Las Vegas called EDC, which is like
Yeah.
a dream festival. Like it was like it was my second show ever. I'm like, what is happening? This is nuts. So I asked for an extension and I wasn't given one, so I had to sit in the Harrah's Casino Starbucks just like absolutely pooped and sleep
Did
deprived.
you cry your eyes out?
What?
Did you cry about
I
it?
didn't cry. I just was like, ugh. I had to write this 4-page essay. I can't even remember what it was about. And I was just like, this is actually miserable. I'm living my dream life and being held back by what everyone else thinks my life should be. So
yeah.
I made the decision to leave and just take a much more relaxed approach at my local community college.
Oh, okay.
But it's yeah.
So do you think any of your friends right now will buy say a ticket for $100 or maybe $200 to come watch you perform at a show or festival?
$100
Do you think-
$200.
Do you think your friends will do that for you?
I mean, a lot of the time I try to get them on guest list because they're the homies. They got to come support. Personally, like a lot of the shows that I play are cheaper ticket prices. Like
Yeah.
I don't think.
I mean, obviously, those are very expensive prices. I'm just saying, if you had a show for $100
yeah.
or $200, do you think your friends will?
100%. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if they would for 100, 200. I'd probably tell them don't wait for a show that's a bit cheaper. I'm not quite at that level where I'm doing that. I haven't played a debut headliner yet. Actually, I don't know how much I want to spoil, but I'm planning a debut headliner right now, and I want it to be this lovely curated experience that's relatively inexpensive on the ticket front. But yeah, I mean, I have had friends come out to shows, and buy their tickets and the whole nine, and it's lovely because I feel like, especially the ones that I know from my hometown and outside of the electronic scene, they see a side of me that they've always been aware of, but they've never really seen for themselves. And I think that a Skybreak show is like the rawest form of my expression. It's just like it's emotional, it's hype, it's fun, but it's also a little like it's curated. The visuals are all like blues and greens, which I tend to curate my wardrobe around that. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like it's a way that my friends understand me more when they come and see it. So
Well, Jack, I must say it feels like I've lived inside of your story. It's been a very funny roller coaster. But so I have a final question for you.
Yeah.
Right? So all the things we've talked about, has any of them served as an inspiration for any of your songs? Like, how has recording music changed since that? Like, tell me a little.
How has
bit
recording
about-
music changed since I started? Or
No, I mean all the things you've talked about, the hardships you've gone through, the successes you've made, the people you've met. Have maybe any of them served as an inspiration for any of your songs?
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. Like I said before, with the writer's block question, I feel like, at least for me, it may be different for other people, I have to express as authentically as possible. Actually, I have a hilarious story where I'm working on a big project right now, and I was gaining this sense of confidence all throughout the year. And one of the cuts off it, one of the final tracks of the project is just kind of this chill, emotional instrumental. And at the time of writing it, I was like, all the other lyrics that I was writing were all like, like I'm feeling powerful, like I'm feeling confident, I'm letting go of my old identity and assuming, a truer version of myself. And I was like, well, I can't. I tried to write depressing lyrics for this one. I'm just like, I'm too happy right now. I can't write depressing lyrics. I'm like, okay, let's put this on hold. And then earlier this year, I was going through some heartbreak, like breakup stuff, shenanigans, personal life business, and I was like, all right, let's get cracking. And I wrote the song.
So you wrote a song about your heartbreak?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I feel like it's a great source. I've written a couple songs about it, but it's a great source of inspiration because it is just such a visceral human experience that is universally relatable, I think. So I like pen to paper. I don't know if you guys have seen the meme gif where it's like the dude's got the pen and it's on fire and there's the paper. It's just like that. Yeah, that was me. And the song just came to me so unbelievably naturally and came out on the paper. So to answer your question, yeah, I think everything that happens in my life, one way or another, influences my work, consciously or subconsciously. Consciously as in like, oh, I had a heartbreak and I'm going to write lyrics about it. But subconsciously as well, like the memories I make with my friends, the music that I listen to at the gym when I forget my AirPods, all of that is just going to flow my brain juices in a certain way. And all I can do is just be a vessel for what it comes up with. So
hopefully you write a song about this interview. Hopefully.
About the interview? I don't know.
So now that you've established that your confidence level has gone from 0 to hero, How would you say, what would you say has changed since you started recording music? Like, would you say, your style of writing has changed, or you make better music now that, your confidence level is
I
high?
think I would hope that I make better music than when I started out. But yeah, I mean, the influences that inspired me have changed. The speed at which I'm willing to work has drastically
Yeah,
improved. I mean, as humans, we're ever shifting beings, right? Like the songs that I dug 5 years ago, maybe some of them I still love, right? But
yeah.
it's going to be a completely different palette from what I'm enjoying now. So just instinctively, like intuitively, what I'm going to write is going to change. And yeah, I think the one major thing that's changed is like there is a lot more pressure on me,
Mm-hmm.
uh, on what I'm writing and what I'm not writing, and opportunities that I take and that I don't take, and the whole 9 yards. So it's like it's difficult to get out of your head sometimes, but I've put great effort into that in the past few years to revert that. So I'm kind of back to that childlike state of creativity now, which took a lot of training and a lot of like untraining. Uh,
Well,
but yeah, that's sort of my answer.
well, don't be surprised if I'm catching a flight to California in December.
Yeah, oh, it'll
Don't
be
be
great. Come through. It's gonna be a fun show.
Thank
I
you
think that one is closer to more $100 ticket price, just because it's such a iconic venue. But yeah, that's gonna be with one of my best friends in the world, Eric Asora. We're going back to back. We've done a couple shows together. That festival I was mentioning in Ohio,
Yeah.
and we played in San Francisco a couple weeks ago, and both shows were fantastic. And the headliner is Sabai, who's really kind of capitalized on the Asian American market.
Oh, that's good.
He is a very, very talented musician. He interpolates live guitar, and he's got a great fun show as well. So
Well,
we'll see how it goes.
thank you for being here, Jack. It was really, really nice talking to you.
Yeah, good
If
stuff.
you're at home and would like to listen to Jack's music, you can find him on Spotify and SoundCloud under the name Skybreak, Skybreak, and follow him at Skybreak DM on both Instagram and X. This is just our first episode of Unsuccessful. Over the next few weeks, we will find more people like Jack who have found success but not without hardship. Thank you for tuning in. I'm still your host, Okoye Roy, and I'll see you next time.